Right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm essentially what you would call a wildlife cameraman with a specialization in underwater. And what I want to do this afternoon is just share with you some of my experiences of the natural world, and specifically 2 film projects that I've worked on over the last 5 to 6 years. A lot of people ask me when they first meet, well, how did you get into this? Because it's not really something that they offer at school. Certainly when I was at school, it wasn't on the list. And I've always had a passion. I mean, you grow up in South Africa, and it's a given that you have access. It's one of the amazing things about this country is you have access to the natural world. So, I used to go down to the Transkei on holidays, was always involved in the sea. But it was really during my university years that when I started spearfishing that I started to develop a proper relationship with the ocean, and obviously with all the creatures that live in it, because when you do go spearfishing, you attract sharks, and that was a massive kind of imprinting experience in my life. And then, of course, reality kind of intrudes. You need to build a career. You need to kind of contribute. So I kind of did what a lot of people did, and got into the corporate thing, and essentially worked in the corporate world for 10 years in digital, specifically in advertising, and then later in the financial services industry. And it was actually while I was at the Graduate School of Business in Cape Town, and I'd been getting a bit frustrated, and I had this kind of epiphany, partly through the course. And there were 2 things that were very, very clear in my mind. The first thing was that I did not want to work in big organizations because of the kind of behaviors that start to emerge in those big organizations as a function of the size of them, not so much the people, but the function of the size. And the second thing is I had an absolute desire to get back to the natural world, to spend more time in the natural world. And again, that whole spearfishing experience was just so incredibly strong. That imprint left such a strong kind of mark on me. And I'll never forget at the time, a very good friend of mine gave me some fantastic advice. And he said to me, Roger, rather be the T-boy in the industry you want to be in than the CEO of a company in an industry you don't want to be in. And that was fantastic, and I really took that to heart. I resigned, and I had a strong sense that photography would be a fantastic way to, because if you're given a camera, you have license to actually get back into the natural world. And that's exactly what I did. And it was very difficult at first because this was a new career, but fortunately, again, because of the spearfishing background, what I'd learned through that spearfishing was what we call in the industry fieldcraft. So all that experience gave me the ability to get close to animals underwater and to find them, which, obviously if you're going to film them, you've got to find them, you've got to get close to them, especially underwater, because you can't use long lenses underwater. You've got to get very close and intimate with the creatures that you are filming. And really my big break came about in 2007 when I was asked to assist on a David Attenborough BBC shoot filming The Great Tide, which was the sardine run. And now this is probably one of the greatest natural events in the world, and it happens off the Transkei coast. And it's accessible to all of you, and I'd strongly urge you to think about going there at some stage. But we worked on this project, and basically the phenomenon, what actually happens there is that you get this aggregation of sardines, this huge aggregation of predators, and it creates this spectacle that is unlike anything else. And it was actually on this trip that I met Didier and Noirot. Now, Didier was Jacques Cousteau's cameraman for 10 years, and he was massively inspirational to me because suddenly I had a sense of, an image of what I could be and where I could channel my energy. So we worked together on the actual program, and we connected very, very closely. And Didier then asked me if I wanted to go up to the Okavango Delta. He had a special project that he was working on, and he asked me if I wanted to go and assist him. And I was like, absolutely, I'm with you, let's go. So basically we went up to the Delta, and I don't know if you know the Okavango Delta at all, but it's a phenomenal natural location. And basically what happens is it's one of the only rivers in the world that flows into a desert. So it doesn't flow into the sea, it flows into the desert. And that water that you see, which is in winter, has actually fallen in the Angolan highlands 6 months before. And it takes 6 months to flow down and then come into this desert. So at the driest time of the year, you have this oasis. And of course, that attracts all the animals in. And a lot of people know the top side, but obviously we were interested with exploring the underside, the underwater world of that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Incredible sort of almost kryptonite green water, a lot of underground vegetation, and of course, some of what I call charismatic animals. And really, this was Didier's dream. Didier's dream was to dive with a big Nile crocodile without a cage. Okay, so that was essentially the quest. And he'd actually come up the year before and done that on his own. He'd got in with a Nile crocodile on his own, and he hadn't been eaten. So he needed, and that was essentially what he needed me there for, was to basically assist him. And we wanted to take this onto a whole new level. So what I want to do now is just describe to you exactly what that experience was like the very first time I got into the water with Didier. Okay, so we're on the Delta. The boat's sort of heading downstream. We're moving along. And the next minute, you come around a corner and there's a massive animal on the side, on the bank. So we pull the boat in, okay? Now, Didier's got a big camera. He's got a massive big camera, and I've got this teeny little weeny one like this, okay? So Didier gets in. He's a big guy. So Didier gets into the water, okay? And I'm absolutely petrified. It's the most petrified I've ever been in my entire life, in my adult life, probably my entire life. I get in behind him, I start swimming behind him, and I'm very, very clear. Now, you're going down the channel, you're trying to see where that crocodile is. You don't know whether it's come into the water, you don't know where that animal is. And it's quite murky, so you're swimming. So I'm behind him, and then I kind of see the space where you can imagine the crocodiles come in. So Didier frames up. Now, I go around this side, okay? And I'm sort of over here. And I'm looking and I'm watching, and the next minute, I look up, and this massive head of this crocodile is literally this far away from me, okay? It's standing like that, and there's like a ridge. And as it sees me, it kind of backs off like this and disappears behind the ridge. It's all underwater, happening underwater. So I scream around to the back of Didier. I kind of point to where the crocodile is, and I'm cowering behind him. As I say, he's a big guy. And Didier, with his big camera, he just goes straight in and he confronts this crocodile straight head on like that. I move to the side, and I'm so petrified, I can't even, I actually want to just hold the camera over the top like this. I don't even want to stick my head, because I'm convinced if I show myself, that crocodile is going to eat me. Absolutely convinced. And eventually, I managed to overcome that fear. I got up, I got the second shot, because that's my job as a second cameraman, is to get that shot. So anyway, the crocodile swam off, and that was the beginning of the whole experience. And what was astounding is that we then went on to do a number of dives with these animals together and found that actually, if anything, there was a period, if you approached them correctly, okay, with the right kind of attitude and the right approach, they were almost submissive. And we were able to have some incredible encounters with these animals deep in their papyrus system, in the actual layers, where they take their prey to decompose. And there you can see the actual moving into one of the layer systems. So it was really a phenomenal experience. And I guess, what was the key takeout? It was a great experience on many levels. But the amazing thing for me, and I think this is the key point that I want to get across, is that so often in life, we live in a relationship with the idea of something. We've never experienced it before, but we're adamant that, that's the way it is. If I challenge my boss or whatever, he's going to fire me, and my life's over. And really, the message for me coming out of this experience is that so often, it's just an idea. The only way to challenge that is you've got to actually go in and build a relationship with that thing. Okay, so that was a key takeout. We then moved on after this project. We heard about a man in Costa Rica who had a relationship with a crocodile, and which we thought was essentially impossible. How can this be possible? And this was an American crocodile, so a little bit less aggressive, but still a formidable animal. And we went down and we met this guy. And the amazing thing, again, and this is the kind of key takeout of this whole experience, it was two things. One, I was struck by the incredible sentience of this animal. Being able to work closely with a crocodile and seeing this man's relationship with it. I was incredibly struck by that. The intelligence and the sentience. I never thought that a reptile, of all things, could be that sentient. And his relationship, I'm adamant that this was a love affair. This was a love affair. When he came back from a trip, that crocodile got excited, and exactly like a dog would. And it really challenges so many of our perceptions of the natural world and the creatures that live in it. And it really was. It was a remarkable, remarkable, remarkable story. Unfortunately, the crocodile died recently, but that was a love affair between a man and animal. Absolutely phenomenal experience. So what I really want to do in terms of just kind of closing this is to take the learnings from both of these shoots and kind of leave you with an idea. I want you to imagine that this stage here, where you're sitting, is actually a glacier. Okay? So you've got kind of mountains on the other side, and this is a glacier. Now, essentially what a glacier is, it's compacted ice and snow, okay, which has formed over hundreds of thousands of years. From a distance, it looks quite solid, okay, but when you get closer, it's moving, and it's full of what are called crevasses, which are basically huge, big fissures, which are very, very dangerous, and you can fall in these crevasses. Often there's ice on top, snow on top. And I think as a species, okay, imagine that the whole human race is living on this crevasse, living on the glacier, okay? When we were hunter-gatherers, what we used to do is we hunted in the crevasses. There were all these animals in the crevasses. Life was very dangerous, potentially quite short, but that was our reality. That was our world. Then over sort of 1,000 years of the Industrial Revolution and progress, etc., we started to build these buildings on stilts above the glacier, okay? And we removed ourselves. We shored certain areas up. We put concrete in. We solidified it. We made things a lot safer. And I almost get the sense now that in the 21st century, we're building another whole level on top, which is like the virtual world. And that's essentially where we live as a species to a large extent. We live in that virtual world. We have no access anymore to these animals that live in the crevasse, except through nature programs, on a kind of a symbolic level. So really what I want to encourage you to do, and this is really the message, is that I really want you to think about getting out of those, getting away from those stilts and putting yourself into those crevasses, both on a physical level in terms of going and experiencing these things, and also on a psychological level, It's very, very easy to sort of be afraid, and a lot of the speakers have spoken about this, of approaching an edge, okay, and thinking that, I can't go there, and giving a million reasons why you can't go over there. And from my experience, it is very difficult to die. I promise you, you will not die. Okay? You will not die. Just trust me with that. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you'll be amazed at the shift that takes place when you actually push yourself over that edge and open yourself up to these opportunities. So that really is my closing message to you, is go and camp in a crevasse. Become familiar, become comfortable living in that zone of uncertainty. And you will be amazed at the kind of shift and the things that actually emerge. Thank you very much.